So much of the future is based on your ability to control the conversation that's happening in the industry. That person is going to get their information from somewhere. The question is, are they going to get it from you? We know that our buyer today is more informed than they've ever been. We know that the average buyer today is 80% through the buyer's journey. By the time they reach out to you, by the time they fill out that form on your website, by the time they call you, by the time you sit down with them and shake their hand, on average, they're 80% home. And if we went back 25 years to the beginning of the internet, that number was very, very different. For example, Matt, if you had to guess, right, we went back in time 25 years ago, knowing today they're super informed, they're vetting us to death online. 25 years ago, pre-internet, what do you think that number was, if you had to make a guess? Yeah, 20%. And I would literally say the exact same thing. If I had to guess, 25 years ago, our typical buyer, before they talk to us, they talk to whoever that person was, the company, 20 to 30% through that buyer's journey. So that number, is it ever going to go back? Yes or no? Never going back. It's only going to elevate, which means we have got to win the 80%. So much of the future is based on your ability to control the conversation that's happening in the industry. That person is going to get their information from somewhere. The question is, are they going to get it from you? Or are they going to get it from someone else? Because rest assured, they're going to get the information. And if this is true, it means that your ability to market and your ability to build a brand has never been more important. Now, for those that don't know my full story, I started off as a swimming pool guy in 2001, right out of college. Things were going okay up until we had the crash of 2008. Now, what is so great about the crash of 2008, and what's so great about any time we experience pain as business owners, is it forces us to do things that we otherwise wouldn't do. You know, we get comfortable and we get complacent. It's actually, there's a name for this. It's called the pride cycle. When everything is going well, we stop doing the little things. You can look at it like a circle. At the top, you have prosperity. At the bottom, you have pain. When you have prosperity, things are going well, and you sometimes stop doing the things that you need to do to be successful and to be happy and to be joyful. And because you stop doing the little things, you experience pain. And because you experience pain, you start to do the little things again that make you more successful. And you start doing them, you build momentum, and you get back to that place of success and of plenty. And then because you got back to that place, you got lazy again, and that is the history of the world. That's the history of relationships that you have with your loved ones, that you see it with businesses that get lazy, and it's over and over again. That's the pride cycle. Those that are willing to overcome that and say always, we need to be on the front edge and not motivated by some economic collapse to do that which you've already should have been doing. The problem is too often we're motivated as businesses to finally take that leap and do that thing that we haven't wanted to do, like video, for example, simply because now we're struggling to get leads. Whereas when the COVID rainbow was here, everything was easy and we were all order takers. See, that's the pride cycle in action. And I was telling all these people within my community, do not allow this time to skew how you see sales and home improvement. Some of you entered this industry during that time period, and now you're just starting to say, oh, okay, yeah, a little bit different. That's why we got to come to these events. And so because of the pain, I started to really study, and I started to apply myself and think about how buyers had changed, and I started to learn all these things like inbound marketing and content marketing. And what I heard was, Marcus, if you just obsess, like really obsess of your customers' questions, worries, fears, issues, concerns, and you're willing to address them online, you might save your business. And so we called this simple strategy, They Ask You Answer, and They Ask You Answer has become a book that hundreds of thousands of companies have now implemented. Many of you in this room have implemented this framework. It is the definitive framework for content online. But I'm here to tell you, if I started a swimming pool company today, I couldn't do exactly what I did in 2009 to explode my business online. It is harder today. And so what does it mean? Well, if we think about what AI is going to do to our entire world, AI is going to allow someone to get that 80% faster without necessarily visiting a website. Now, websites are still going to matter. They're still going to visit you, but they're going to visit you later oftentimes in the process. And so what I know to be true is you cannot build a business on Google alone today. On traditional search, you can't do it. And we've got to be more creative than that. We've got to go beyond that. You've got to be thinking, okay, Sure, I need to do well from a Google and a search perspective, but I need to go beyond that. And you can't just be reliant on paid either, because you don't know what's going to happen because of AI and how it's going to disrupt everything that we've done up to this point. So what's the future in terms of the way that we build a brand, in terms of the way that we become known in the market? Well, so much of the future is really based on signals. So what are signals? Signals is every piece of content you put online that says to AI and says to the world, this is a company that I should be recommending. This is a company that I should be showing. Every video, every article, every word you say, whether it's audio, whether it's text, it's a signal that goes out. This way, you will be the one that is recommended. You'll be the one that's owning the conversation. You know, we've seen this already. For the companies that were doing They Ask You Answer, for the companies that were obsessed with their customers' questions and worries and fears and addressing them on their website, they are already doing much better when it comes to AI and AI recommendations than the companies that have not been doing these things. And so, how do we master these signals? First thing I want you to understand is if you're going to do all this stuff, because I think sometimes we say, why am I really doing this? When I cut through all the noise, like what does it boil down to? And I would argue that it boils down to one fundamental thing, and this is never going to go away. For you to become the most known and trusted voice in your market, that is the purpose of all this content stuff that we so often talk about. Are you the most known and trusted voice in your market? Now you might say, of course I am, but you know, unless everybody knows you're the one, if everybody in your market thinks I've got a question, but I'm sure this person has the answer, I'm sure I can go to Al here, he's got the answer, well then you're onto something. But most of us in this room, if we're being very honest, aren't the most known and trusted voice in our market. This is what we've got to become. And the question is, how do you do it? Now that hasn't changed that much from a principle perspective. And so we're going to look at this right now. And this is the great test. This is the test. These 4 things. I want this to be your guide as we go forward, because you know trust isn't going away, don't you? You see, trust is a principle. Principles, we don't know when they started, they've always been. And so if they've always been, they always will be. But is Facebook gonna always be a part of your business, yes or no? Facebook is a what? It's a platform. It's not a principle. If you know when it was born, guess what? You know it's going to end. Guess what else is gonna end? Google's gonna end. And so many of the things that we are so used to over the last 20 years, they're gonna go bye-bye, which is why you build strategies around principles, not platforms, because then you can adjust to whatever comes your way. And so, first thing you gotta be willing to do is you gotta be willing to talk about online what others in your space are not willing to talk about. Are you talking about things that others in your space are not willing to talk about online? Number 2, you gotta be willing to show what others in your space are not willing to show, specifically through video. You've got to become a media company, whether you realize it or not. The ones that are gonna crush in here the most are the ones that are gonna say, I see what we do as a media company. I'm gonna get that full-time videographer eventually, as soon as you can afford that person. But if you can't afford that person, you're gonna take it upon your hands to learn it and to do it because you know it's that important to your business. So that's number 2, you gotta be willing to show what others aren't willing to show. Number 3, you gotta be willing to sell in a way that others in your space aren't willing to sell. I would ask you, are you selling differently than everyone in your space right now? What's your name? Brady. Brady, are you selling differently? Can you give me a specific way that you're selling right now that at least 95% of your competitors would say, no, we're not doing that? Now, he said social media. Do you think 95% of his competitors would say, yeah, we're doing some social media? That's not a differentiator. Now, you might be doing it better, but that doesn't count for number 3. Number 3 means like they say to you, nobody's done this for us. Nobody offered that. Nobody said it that way. Nobody allowed us to do it that way. And then finally, number 4, as AI continues and technology continues to affect so much, you know, there's this thing called the reality paradox that we're all starting to experience. Has anybody here watched a video online and asked yourself, is that real? It's going to get to the point where every single thing you see, you won't know if it's actually real. That's called the reality paradox. I'm not here to celebrate it, but what I will say for certain is this. You, when it comes to these signals, have to send very strong signals to the market that a human is behind this thing, the content. It's gotta feel real. Not like AI created it. A human created the thing. There's a human behind the thing. A connection is being made with you because of the thing.